Pleased to have you join us on another insightful day on Matters on Ground. My name is Osasogi Aidei, and this is the Breakfast Show on TSL Nigeria TV. Today on the show, we are going to be discussing living and thriving in Nigeria, focusing on salient issues ranging from gross insecurity to land disputes and, of course, to the constant deterioration of the nation's economy. Stick around to find out more after this break. It's all about survival of the fittest for Nigerians, having to face the good, the bad, and the ugly, and not knowing what to expect with each day that breaks. Hence our topic, living and thriving in Nigeria. Today, I'm hanging out on the show with my co-host, Favor of Yeloba, and a guest. Our guest is a legal practitioner, a litigation counsel by the name Barrister Anthony Osula. Good to have you join us on the show this morning.
Thank you very much, Sogi.
Yes. Happy New Year.
Same to you.
Good morning, Favor.
Thank you very much for having me on the show. I'm happy to be here.
Okay, so first and foremost, we are going to start. The first issue on our radar this morning is the Magodo Estate crisis. We've heard about the crisis that has been going on in the Magodo Estate, Phase 2 estate of Lagos, talking about the residents of that said estate and the landlords of Shangisha, who are having some conflicts over land ownership. So we heard that this issue dates back to 1984, and now it's still on ground. And the recent development is that the Shangisha landlords went into the estate with an intention to demolish some of the houses in that estate, and the residents started protesting. So we want to find out, our first question now, what is the legality of the landlords actually breaking into that estate and wanting to demolish some of these houses that are being occupied by residents?
Okay, thank you very much for that question. It's a great one. Before we can give a proper dissection of the legality involved, you know, what most Nigerians don't understand is that many of them have not read the judgment of the Supreme Court.
Okay.
And are only relying on, you know, what some very senior lawyers in the legal profession are telling them. And the truth of the matter is that some of them are being economical with the truth, you know, because the history dates back to 1984. Shangisha Landlord Associations, the area known as Magodo now, previously used to be known as Shangisha Village.
Okay.
Now, the Shangisha landlords, the allegation is that they bought their property from the original owners, who were villagers. They started living in their property, they started building houses, to the knowledge and consent of the Lagos State government. Okay. Later, the military governor of Lagos State, as at that time, came up with a edit that's for variety public purpose, that they intend to use the property into this Magodo for, you know, building of hospitals and other public utility that will serve members of the public. The Shangisha landlords were not served with demolition notice as at that time, and the government went ahead and started destroying their properties, you know, evacuating them from their property. The landlord association, they were not comfortable. There were about 549 of them which were captured, or even more. They went to court. While they were in court, there was a series of meetings between the Shangisha Landlord Association, led by Chief Adebayo Adeyiga, and the military governor of Lagos State as at that time. And they reached a resolution that 549 plots should be allotted to the Shangisha Landlord Association. You understand? And that you'll be given first choice priority over any other person before they begin to reallocate the lands. But painfully, the Lagos State government, for reason best known to them, rescinded from that agreement. It was on the basis of which the Shangisha Landlord Association went to court to enforce, you know, the amicable or gentleman agreements they had with the Lagos State government. And the trial courts, you know, believed that testimony and granted judgment. The matter eventually went to the Court of Appeal and eventually to the Supreme Court. And the Supreme Court affirmed the decision of both the Court of Appeal and the trial court. And what is the decision of court? What did the court make? We need to look at the wordings properly. there were two orders that were made, which was affirmed by the Supreme Court. The first order is that a declaration that the Shangisha Landlord Association, are entitled to first choice preferential treatment in the reallocation or allocation of 549 plots within the Shangisha area by the Lagos State government. And the court made a specific order that the government is in respect of the agreement reached between parties dated 16th of October 1984. And the court also went further to make a mandatory injunction compelling the Lagos State government, which were the defendants, to allot or reallocate 549 plots to the Shangisha Landlord Association within the Shangisha area, which is the present-day Magodo.
Okay.
You understand what I'm trying to say?
Yes.
But persons that have been out there have been canvassing the argument that no, the government did not make specific declaration as to the area where they should be reallocated. That is, to the best of my knowledge, not correct.
So the landlords now have every right to go into the estate.
Yes, to go into Magodo estates. Yes, because now the second relief which was made is a executory judgment of court. When you talk about executory judgment of court, we have declaratory relief. When the court declare that you have your rights.
Okay.
You understand? But the second relief, which is an order of mandatory injunction, is an executory judgment of court.
Okay.
That is to say, it can be executed.
Oh, wow.
What I expect the Lagos State government to have done, we all know that Magodo now has been reallotted to several persons, and perhaps there is no more 549 plots readily available to allot to the Shangisha Landlord Association. They should have called them and given them alternative plots, which they actually did.
Okay.
But the area which they wanted to allot to them was not favorable to so many members of that association. They wanted to give them Ibejuleki, which, to the best of my knowledge, is just an upcoming area. Of course, it has many prospects because people say the Dangote refinery is close to that place. But
okay.
I feel they should have given them perhaps some monetary compensation to help them, assist them in settling down again in a new area. So the government itself is executory. What these landlords have done is correct. The victims here are just the Magodo residents.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, they are victims in one part, and I also fought them in another part. What do I say? Before you purchase the property, yes, you are buying from the government. You ought ordinarily to have done due diligence. You cannot tell me that it never came to the knowledge of those who bought or who are residents in Magodo that there is a pending litigation between the Lagos State government and the Shangisha Landlord Association.
Yes.
And yet they still went ahead to buy. Or perhaps they were not aware, maybe they were also misled by the Lagos State government. You know what this judgment actually brings out? It brings out the executive lawlessness and recklessness of our executive arm of government.
Yeah, I was about to ask that because it's difficult for us to follow court order. We see situations where court gives orders and people do otherwise. Why?
You see, court orders are not difficult to obey or to be enforced. It's quite unfortunate that we live in a country wherein certain political persons or elites or money bags feel that you cannot, enforce an order against them, especially against their interests. Because the Supreme Court is the highest law of the land. It's the apex courts. An order of court is not made for the fun of it. An order of court is not made in vain. An order of court must be enforced. It's just that when you want to enforce, you need, to an extent, the cooperation of the executive arm of government, which in this case is the Lagos State government. Because now, if you want to enforce what they call post-judgment proceedings, you have gotten judgments. You will not apply to the judge within the jurisdiction where the judgment was gotten, like Lagos State High Court. You apply to the judge for what we call a warrant of possession. This judgment of the Supreme Court has been frustrated several times by the Lagos State judiciary because the judgment was gotten against the Lagos State government. So you see the tricks now.
Yes.
So that's why the association had no record. They had to go to Abuja, mobilize, the IG, had to get the consent of the AG to enforce this judgment. So I can say policemen as at that time, the allegation made by some thugs invaded the Magodo estate. I don't think that is correct.
Okay.
Because a judgment of courts will be done by the bailiff. And under the Sheriff and Civil Process Act, or Civil Sheriff and Law of Lagos State, the bailiff of court who wants to execute a judgment can request the assistance of the Nigerian police. But there's a specific provision that says the Nigerian police shall assist the bailiff of court in the enforcement of court orders.
Okay.
That's to ensure that while the bailiff of court is executing these judgments, there will be no breach of peace. or an incident where the belief will be beaten up by the supposed residents of a Magodo estate.
Okay.
Okay, we also saw the video where the Lagos State Governor, the altercation between Lagos State Governor Babajide Sanwo-Olu and the CSP. Now, do you think that altercation was needed? Because now Sanwo-Olu is the chief executive officer of that state. Now, before anything happens in a state, I feel the governor should be aware. So, the altercation, do you feel it was needed or should have been avoided?
That altercation for me should have been avoided because, in my own opinion, Mr. Sanwo-Olu had no business even being there in the first place.
Okay.
You understand? Because in my own assessment, I see it as an interference of a due process of law. While execution is going on, you are trying to use your executive power. Of course, some persons have interpreted it in different aspects. Oh, the chief law officer of the state. To what extent?
I believe I'm one of those people who have been...
To what extent? Because Mr. Sanwo-Olu cannot tell me or feign ignorance that the judgment of 2012 had never come to his attention. So he had ample opportunity to settle it at that of, courts. Even if I get a judgment of courts, you can do what we call a compromise judgment. Because, okay, this is the judgment of courts, but let us agree on this way. And it should not be binding on parties. They had that opportunity, and they missed it. You don't expect the judgment creditors who have gotten judgments in their favor through the due process of law by the Supreme Court to sit down idle and not allow them to enjoy the fruits of their judgments. So, and now, when you are doing execution, there are processes you go. The warrant of possession has already been signed by a judge. The Nigerian police, by virtue of the provisions of the Sheriff and Civil Process Acts, gives them the power to accompany the belief of courts in executing this judgment of courts. I think what the governor of Lagos State wanted to just do was find a political solution. You wouldn't blame me actually because this is an incident happening in the states.
Yes.
And these are members who also voted for him. And apart from that, you and I know that Magodo is a very influential, neighborhood where you have many money bags and political elites. So cause obviously will have been reached to him. So I think at some point he himself was startled and he had little or no option. But ordinarily, he had no business being there in the very first place.
Okay.
And I want to also salute even the Nigerian police. They were very, very professional. I must say that the CSP was professional. There was not much of banter or altercations of that kind. If Mr. Sanwo-Olu needed to have his presence there, we could have simply have done that through his AG.
Okay.
The Attorney General, with the Chief Law Officer of the State.
Okay. So now, talking about having business being there or not, I know this is not the first time we've seen cases in Nigeria where the governor of a state is trying to give out directives to police officers and they're telling him, no, you're not within the jurisdiction to tell me that. I think this happened some time ago with the then governor of Rivers State, Rotimi Amechi. So now, if the chief security officer of a state, let me go back to what you said about people misinterpreting it because, yes, like I said, I'm one of those people. If the chief security officer of a state is not within the jurisdiction of giving out orders or directives to police officers, who then is? So I believe that as the governor of a state, even if the directive is coming directly from maybe the president himself, the governor ought to be aware of what's going on, of the orders or the directives. You cannot just swoop into a state and start carrying out actions.
You see, each fact or circumstances must be viewed separately.
Okay.
Yes, the governor of a state is the chief law officer of a state. Okay. That is to protect lives and property, and secure the welfare, well-being of the citizens of that state. But it must be within the confines of the law. And that power, as a chief law officer, must not also be used recklessly.
Okay.
You must not abuse that power to, subtract or to interfere with a due process of law. Because I'm the chief law officer of a state doesn't mean that I can indiscriminately use the police to start arresting opposition members. For instance, which we have seen in time past done by successive governments. Now, in the Nigerian police, there is a chain of command. Unfortunately, we don't practice true federalism. Now, the police is a federal institution which is being controlled from Abuja. You have the IG, the AIGs, you have the commissioners, you have other low-ranking officers. Now, the police, the way they are being trained, you take orders from above. You don't deteriorate from it. You understand? So, even Mr. Sanwo-Olu, for instance, is canvassing the argument as the chief law officer of the state. Yes, he is correct. But in that circumstances, wherein the police were executing the judgment of court, can you now say you cannot exercise that right? It's like, for instance, now, a man goes rampage in the community with AK-47 and murders about 40-something persons, and the police sweep to arrest him. He now say, oh, I'm the chief officer. Say, don't arrest him. No. I wouldn't want that for you to arrest him. That would be, you know, you are trying to interfere with the police, the powers of the police, as enshrined in the Police Act, from which they derive their powers also from the Constitution. So you can, the chief officer cannot use it recklessly. It will depend on the circumstances. Each circumstances will be interpreted separately.
Okay.
It does not have a general covering and say, because I'm a chief law officer of the state, I can thereafter order policemen to leave Magodo Estate. You understand?
Yes,
so
it's more open.
Exactly.
It's more open now. Okay, so moving on to other matters, we're going to also be looking at the recent development to the Sylvester Oromoni case. Little backstory: we heard last year about how a 12-year-old child of Dowen College, Lagos, was allegedly bullied in school, and then he died afterwards. And then his father came out to say that before he died, the child made a death declaration naming the people who were actually involved in his death. Now, skip to this new year, recent developments have shown that the Lagos State government have asked that these said people who were named as being involved in the case should be exonerated from the case, and those who were being held hostage should be released. Now, I want to ask, I believe that a 12-year-old child who's at the brink of death has no reason whatsoever to fabricate stories. So why shouldn't his death declaration, as it were, be enough to actually convict those that were named for the crime?
Well, before I answer that question, I want to use the opportunity to send my condolence with the family of Mr. Sylvester. I pray that God will give them the opportunity to bear the loss.
Definitely.
But if we are to discuss this issue properly, we should remove emotions, devoid of sentiments, and look at it logically. Now, I have not seen a video where the boy actually made mentions of person's name.
Okay.
I also saw a video when the boy was crying in excruciating pains. It was the father who came out to say, before his son died, that he made mention of certain incidents that occurred in his school. I didn't watch a video of it. I don't know if there was any in the internet. I don't think there was any. It was the story of the father. So, of course, a lot of Nigerians were emotional about it. But one thing I keep on telling people, no matter how a story might be, there's always two sides. Yeah. Let's wait. Let's hear the other side before we reach a definite conclusion. Now, in Nigeria, we practice, in our criminal justice system, we practice what they call a due process model.
Okay.
Now, a complainant will make a complaint to the Nigerian police, which is a body saddled with the responsibility of detection of crime, investigation of crime. When the police have concluded an investigation, they will invite the supposed suspects. They will obtain statement from them. They will conduct investigation. They can use all powers, reasonable powers within the disposal as given them by the law in search for the truth or what actually occurred. After they have done that, they will write what they call investigation reports. They will transmit it to the office of the Attorney General. Either if it's a federal offense, it goes to the General of the Federation. If it's a state offense, it goes to the AG of the states. Now, the AG, or through the officers in his legal department, which also includes the Director of Public Prosecution, will look at the investigation file and will come up with what we call a legal opinion, which can either go to side. That one, a prima facie case has been made against the suspects, and therefore they have a case to answer in court. Or, looking at the fact and the circumstances, no prima facie case has been made against them, and they have no case to answer. If they have a case to answer, the matter will be taken over to the high courts. If it's a capital offense like it is in nature, then the judge will review the evidence, there will be defense and whatsoever. If they can prove the allegation, so be it. But in this instance, there is no document, video evidence, so to speak, of Mr. Sylvester saying he was trying to be initiated into courtesy and that he was made to drink, poisonous or toxic substance. You see, one mistake I feel the father made, which I've told people, beware of media trial. When you see an allegation of that nature, consult a lawyer who should ordinarily bring out a more, frontal statement. Because the father was very explicit and specific as to poisoning.
Yes.
You understand? The other ones were just circumstantial. They was beaten, but it was poisoning. Now, when he made the allegation to the police, what the police is looking out for now is, in fact, what this man has alleged. Is it correct? And one of the best way to do that is through autopsy reports. Now, from the report I read from the Lagos State Ministry of Justice, the family of the deceased, conducted their own independent autopsy reports, which was done in a Warri Central Hospital. And it came out that the boy died of infection. Now, the parents of the child, with the consent of the parents, they took the disease to Lagos, which is what the law allows. Now, you have been alleged that you poisoned this man. Now, the suspect also have the rights to also consult their own independent pathologist. Now, the police also brought their own pathologist.
Okay.
The Lagos State also had a representative pathologist who is an expert. The parents of the child also had their own pathologist, and they all conducted a joint autopsy on the deceased man, and they all came out with one particular result. Although they had a lot of medical jargons, but when I googled it, I realized that it's basically talking about infection. Like maybe when you are injured, you have tetanus or something.
Okay.
So, if you say, my son was poisoned, he was poisoned, he died of poison, he was given a toxic substance to a drink, that what led to his death. Now, experts' opinion have now shown that there was no poison in the boy's system.
Yeah, but people still feel justice has not been served. Now, as a legal practitioner, let's quickly run through this. What do you think what should they do? What can they still do to make sure justice
Well,
can
for
be
me,
served?
there is...
Now, the father said he's not going to bury the son, even if it's 30 years to get justice. It takes him 30 years to get justice. What do you think can be done?
Well, the only thing that can be done, except perhaps some new facts emerge. Maybe there's another autopsy conducted, which I don't see that happening. Because let's be frank, let's look at this thing logically. Like I said, let us remove emotions and sentiments. Nobody can allege foul play in the autopsy report because the parents had their own pathologists on ground. The suspects had their own pathologists. The Lagos State government had their own pathologists. The police had their own pathologists. If there's going to be a foul play, my own pathologist will have raised up the issues.
Yes.
Because when they have concluded their autopsy report, there's a form of the discoveries. Everybody will sign, including your own pathologist, agreeing to this was the cause of death.
Okay.
So I've seen situations like this happening. I've been involved in matters like that, even as a counsel, where I was called into a matter. The suspect was arrested at State CID. The family of the suspects alleged that her mother went to have lunch in her friend's place, and when she came, she complained of stomach upset, and later she died in the hospital. And they said when she went to eat her lunch, they are poisoning her there. In fact, they were specific, say it's poison, it's poison, it's poison. I said, okay, no problem. Police, what are we going to do? We have to do an autopsy report. The police invited the experts, a pathologist, conducted an autopsy report, and said the person died of natural causes. That debunked the allegation of poison. Perhaps if the father of Sylvester had come up with, well, my son died of bullying or some other extrinsic circumstances, the police in the investigation would not be looking at poisoning alone. They would be looking at, okay, is there bruises or something? And I'm really sure if there were bruises, it would have come up in the autopsy reports. You know?
Wow.
And so those are circumstances. So it's only Sylvester's father that knows the truth of what his son actually told him. Because if you have made an allegation and say, for instance, my son died of gunshot wound, and you do an autopsy report, you don't even see any injury occasioned by gunshots, or you can't even remove any bullet pellets. So you know what this man is saying. It's half-truth.
All right, Papa.
Perhaps maybe because of the grievance, he just came up with a story. And, the public just bought into it. There was so much emotions, losing a child. It can happen. I'm not saying he's telling lies, but before the AG of Lagos State will come up with that report, Now, those suspects, their statements will have been taken.
Yes.
Are you telling me there is nobody brave enough in Mr. Sylvester's class or his hostel mates that will have, who the police must have interviewed, that will have said, okay, this is what happened in our room that particular night. It's true, this 1 or 2 persons came in there, they beat him up, and the following day he was crying of pains. I mean, they will have done this investigation.
Yes.
They will have taken statements from possible eyewitness. Perhaps all of them said no, it's not like that ever happened. And if perhaps it happens, then it's very sorry. It's a sorrowful incident.
Yes. All right, for the sake of time, thank you so much. Sorry to cut you. We've exhausted our time. We'll definitely continue this session. We'll have another talk with you. We'll never exhaust our conversations today. We'll not talk about the Buhari review. We'll have another conversation about that. We'll definitely invite you. Thank you so much, Barrister Anthony Osula, for joining us on this set today. All right, that's the much we can take now. Do not forget to follow us on all our social media platforms and subscribe to our YouTube channel at TSN Nigeria TV. Please give us a thumbs up, give us a like. It helps our channel grow. Now, until we'll come your way next time, my name is Favor of Vienloba. Thank you for watching.
Stay connected to TSL Nigeria and get updates on the go all day, every day. Subscribe to our YouTube channel on TSL Nigeria Space TV and join our online family.